Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Min and I'm here to teach you what your parents never taught you about money.
So I've got $1,000 here and I'm going to show you guys 4 ways to make this money work for you.
So before we start with where we put this $1,000, I want to first get one thing out of the way. And this actually is an investment as well if you think about it. And that is to make sure that you pay off any high interest credit card debt that you may have. So the average credit card interest rate is about 15 to 20%. And it can even go up higher than that, up to like 29% even. And so what you want to make sure you do is pay down that debt, because investing just doesn't make sense if you have a 15 to 30% APR on your credit card, because no investment out there is going to get you that high of a return, at least no safe one. Now the reason I say pay off your credit card debt is because that is a guaranteed return. If you think about it, if you are paying 15% interest on, let's say, $1,000, that's $150 every year you're going to be paying. And just by paying off that $1,000, you automatically earn that $150 back because you didn't have to pay the credit card company that. So if you have credit card debt, it is highly advised that you put this money towards that balance as soon as possible. So let's talk about the next way to invest your money. So let's say you have your credit card debts all paid off and you don't have any credit card debt remaining. So you want to do something with this $1,000. And what I suggest you do is, if you don't have an emergency fund, to put this in your emergency fund. And I talked a little bit about this in my other video, but if you don't have an emergency fund, you want to put this away somewhere where you don't touch it. Because most likely if you leave this in your wallet, it's going to vanish out of thin air somehow, because somebody's going to need some money, you're going to have it, you're just going to give it to them most likely. I personally have used Wealthfront and in the past Ally Bank, and they earn about 1.6 to 1.8% APY. It kind of depends on the federal rate. But the nice thing about these banks is they have no fees, no monthly requirements. You can withdraw your money at any given time, and it only takes 1 or 2 days to get your money back. Now the nice thing about this money in that account is that it will earn you, up to 1.82%. So if you put $1,000 in there, you're going to be earning about $18.20 a year, which is better than $0. And you also have that separation to make sure that your money isn't mingled with your other money, and that this money actually is still making you money while doing nothing. So I'll leave a couple links down in the description for you guys so you guys can check those out. Just remember that these banks are online banks, so they don't have ATM machines or anything like that, but they are FDIC insured, so they're just as good as any other bank, and they offer a much higher interest rate than your normal local bank will. Alright, let's get a little bit riskier and let's talk about the next method you can use to earn a little bit more interest than the 1 to 2% from a savings account. And that is to invest in the stock market. So I don't suggest you go and pick individual stocks, because that's way too risky. I did that in the past and I've lost a lot of money doing that. Unfortunately, I gained it all back, but it could have easily gone really bad. What I suggest you do is buy ETFs. These are exchange traded funds, and what they are is they are just like a bucket or a collection of stocks that have been pre-selected by a group, and they're a little bit less riskier because you can easily buy like 500 or 1,000 different companies all at one time without having to buy them individually. Buying them individually will cost way too much. $1,000 is not nearly going to be enough. But if you buy these funds, you're kind of buying fractional shares, and it's a collection of all the companies combined into one. So the safest one that I would suggest you do is the S&P 500, and there are a lot of S&P 500 index funds out there. I personally use the Vanguard one. I've used the Charles Schwab one before. And what the S&P 500 is it's the top 500 US companies. And what Vanguard has done, they've kind of bucketed all those shares together and bought a huge position in it, and now they're just reselling it to you for a lower cost so you can buy into it. So you can see that this ETF consists of a lot of different sectors and not just one. And this kind of diversifies the fund a little bit and makes it a little bit less risky for you. So you can see like this is IT heavy. There's about 24% in there. There's other sectors as well, like real estate and utilities, financial, banks and consumer goods. And if you look here to the right, you can see that Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Facebook. So these are the top 5 holdings in that fund. And then down here, you'll see a couple banks, and you'll see like Visa's in here, JP Morgan Chase, and you'll see like consumer goods like Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble. And if you go look at portfolio holdings, you can actually get a list of all the 500 companies in here. And in this case, we have 509 holdings. But what it's doing is it's just picking the top 500 companies in the US. And what they're doing is they're buying a bunch of those shares into this index fund. And what you're doing is when you buy one share of that VOO fund, you're just owning a fraction of this. And so you own a fraction of 509 companies. So the odds of 509 companies failing in the US is pretty rare. I mean, the only time that can happen is if like a meteor hit the US and everything just went to, dust.
Now, whenever you do buy a fund, there is a fee associated with it. And in this case, Vanguard's fee is very low. You can see their expense ratio is only 0.03%. So if you had $1,000 invested, what they'll do is they'll take a 0.03% on the amount invested. So let's say that $1,000 that you invested, they would take 30 cents for every $1,000. Now, one of the reasons why I chose this fund, because it's a very safe fund, and you can see on macro trends here, there is an S&P 500 historical annual returns page on the S&P 500 itself, and you can see if you go back, maybe all the way to like 2000, there was a huge decline here. But the reason for that is because of the dot-com bubble burst, and you can see like the prior 5 years there was like monstrous growth, and every year there was like 20 to 30% growth, and so this was just like a correction in the market, and you can see that slowly over time it has recovered. And really the next big bust was during the 2008 recession. But outside of those two historic events, you can see the fund has done relatively positive, and you can see greens all over. There's a couple of years where you have like negative 1% here, and then negative 6% in 2018. But last year in 2019, you can see there's a 30% gain. So one thing you can kind of be wary about is if you see a lot of positive gains, in a short period of time, let's say like 5 or 6 consecutive years, there might be a correction coming. But in this case, I don't really see that trend happening. I see there's a couple corrections already. There's some low returns. Historically, this fund has done 8 to 10%. If you just averaged out all of these percentages, you would get 8 to 10%. And during the dot-com burst, you can see here it was going 20% plus every year, which was kind of crazy. And so there was just a slight correction here, which this wasn't even that bad. I mean, if you think about all the money that they made during these years, they probably lost some of it here, but they're still in the positive overall. So that's why I like this fund. And you can see 2020 is already starting out positive. It's already got a 2% gain, and it's only been about 27 days into the year.
So Vanguard's S&P 500 fund has a ticker symbol VOO, and it's running at about $297 a share as of today. So you should be able to buy 3 shares of that and basically have partial ownership of up to 500 companies. If this is your first time investing, I suggest you download Robinhood. You can look for this Vanguard fund specifically on there. The stock ticker is VOO. You can transfer $1,000 in there and you can make your first trade. And you can buy about 3 shares right now for $900, and you can just leave it there. And if history repeats itself, you're probably going to earn anywhere from 10 to 30%, or in some years 0. And if we end up hitting another recession, just don't sell it, and most likely it'll just continue to rise. Alright guys, the last way to invest $1,000 is to simply just invest it in yourself. And that can mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean go out and buy yourself something nice. What it means is, use it to kind of further your knowledge and, maybe learn a new skill. If you're watching this video, you probably don't have a lot of money to invest with, and you're probably trying to figure out how to get rich. And one of the best things you can do, and this will probably have the highest ROI in my opinion, is to go out there and pick up new skills so that you can further your career. You can learn things like photography, how to run a business, how to be a manager, learn some Microsoft skills like Excel or Word. There are so many things that you can learn out there. Me personally, I went through online courses to learn like software engineering and programming, and it has paid off 5-fold for me. And fortunately for me, a lot of those things were actually free. There are many available resources online these days, and there are sites like Udemy and Lynda. And Lynda was just purchased by LinkedIn because it's so valuable. And what you can use Lynda for is you can go learn things like photography, videography, starting a business, learning how to code. There's so many different courses that they have on there, and they're relatively inexpensive. I don't suggest you go and buy all the courses at once. You'll find that some courses are like $100, some of them are $50. Just pick a couple and learn them. And if you're interested in a certain field, let's say you want to be an accountant, go look at some, accountant courses, or go look at some business courses. This is a lot cheaper than going to college and trying to get a degree, because college is going to cost you probably like $13,000 to $20,000. And so this is a cheap way to kind of get in the door. And you'll be surprised, there are a lot of people who have started with 2-year degrees or less and kind of worked their way up. The traditional college route isn't really necessary anymore. And believe me when I say I know this, because I've hired over 50 different people under me, and a lot of the ones that were really good were the ones that didn't go to college. I'm not trying to knock people that went to college. I went to college, but I see a lot more potential with people who haven't gone to college and kind of went through some of these courses, because they've taken the time to kind of learn these things, And that motivation and that strive continues with them in the workforce. Now, these online courses don't need to cost money, and fortunately for today, we have something called YouTube. You're watching me right now, and a lot of that content is actually free. It may not be the best content, but it's content nonetheless, and it's probably going to be a skill you didn't have before. And for me personally, when I first started my career in tech, I had no idea how to code, and I had to learn how to code really quickly. So I had to learn Python, I had to learn HTML and CSS, I had to learn JavaScript, I had to learn jQuery, and learn how to use Linux. So there were a lot of things that I had to pick up really quickly, otherwise I was going to get fired. I started my job through a referral. I had a coworker who told me to come on board. He and I had worked in the past, and I only studied mathematics, and I've only taken one computer science course. And to be honest, I don't even remember anything from that class. So I had to go and pick up these skills. And I remember I found someone on YouTube. His channel was called The New Boston, and I recently went to check him out, and it looks like he has 2.3 million subscribers now, which is good for him. But I remember back in the day, there was like 100 videos on JavaScript, and I literally sat through every single one of those videos and watched every single one. And it took me maybe 3 months to do it, but I would sit down in my free time and watch a couple, and then I would apply it to my job, and then slowly kind of gain that knowledge over time. And that was a free resource, and that's kind of why he has 2 million subscribers. He's giving this information away for free. One other thing that I did with his channel was he was actually teaching other languages too, so I started watching those, but I found that those weren't as beneficial for me in my job, so I stopped watching those, and I started concentrating on things that I actually needed that were relevant for my job. One thing I noticed at my company was we were lacking, any knowledge of JavaScript and jQuery. These are two common languages used in web development. And I went and learned all of that and brought that to my company. And, it didn't go unnoticed because a lot of the managers at the time didn't know it either. So they would just come to me as their go-to person. The best part about investing in yourself is that knowledge stays with you forever. I haven't coded in maybe 4 years or so, but I still remember all of my JavaScript and jQuery and HTML. If I were to go write code right now, I'd probably still be able to do that. But even though I haven't used it in a long time, it's still something I can put on my resume. If I ever wanted to go back into software development, I can still do that. And so that skill that you learn stays with you forever. And ultimately what happens is once you get to a certain pay band and pay scale, that pay scale stays with you forever as well. So, a software developer, they can make anywhere from starting $70,000 up to $100,000. So that pay band is now forever within my reach. And I don't have to ever worry about making less than that because I know I can go back into that if I wanted to. So the reason why I like this last investment the best is, it's kind of that mentality that you have to have. And it's one thing that you have to make sure you continue to do, and that is to never stop learning. Because even in my 12 years of, many different roles, there's always something to learn. Now that I'm starting this YouTube thing, there's like so much more to learn. And that's the thing about life. You can never stop learning. If you think that going to college and getting your 4-year degree was enough, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you start your first job, because you'll realize that everything you learned in college, for the most part, you're not going to use, and you're going to learn everything as you go. That can be said for home ownership. That can be said for building wealth. That can be said for learning new skills. There is just so much to learn. So investing in yourself is going to be very important to make sure that you have at least a baseline level of knowledge, and you're kind of continually increasing your knowledge as your life goes on. So if you hate your job and you always wanted to do something else, go see if there's an online course that you can take to kind of better prepare yourself for that. You don't know you can do it until you actually get the interview. And once you get to the interview, people will actually appreciate the fact that you went and learned that skill. There are certain jobs that you will need to be licensed for, like civil engineering. You obviously have to have a license to do and a degree, but there are a lot of jobs out there that you don't. And so, going this route, you can go and find a career that makes a lot of money, that makes you happy. And, just that small initial investment of time and a little bit of money is going to get you there and kind of set you up for the rest of your life. All right, guys, hopefully these 4 tips were helpful for you. If you have any other tips for me, leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you like content like this, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell.